we stopped on the statement that the bandwidth is infinite. And next will be the assumption that network is secured. So when we choose the distributed approach, maybe we assume that the network is secure, but it is not. And if you're working with monolith approach, then you can expect that it will be maybe one single point of entry point, and you have to secure this one. But when you choose a distributed approach, then it means the communication will be in network. Yes, maybe you have a feeling that if you are working with a private virtual network, then everything is trusted, the firewall is working, but in general, the network is not secured. And during the design phase, you have to keep in mind it when you choose the distributed approach, and you have to provide this security. So you have to put any, not any, you have to protect your endpoint, your REST endpoint by validation, by authorization and authentication of each request. Then it means that even the internal communication between the services, if it should be secured, and it should be, then you will have to spend some time to validate the request, validate the token, and each of these requests, when you have to make this validation, it will increase the time, and as many cross connection between services you have, as longer your request will execute it. So it will influence and have impact for the performance. So if you will hear that, okay, we will need high security, so the security is one of the key points, then the trade-off of this quality attribute will be one of it will influence the performance in generally in your system. So it influence to the performance, and vice versa. In general, it will be quite hard to combine these two statements as security and performance, because in each request you have to validate your request and make it secure, so the delay will increase, and it will be quite complex to combine these two things. I'm not telling that it's not possible, but it will be quite complex to do. Another one is assumption that topology never changed. So when you choose the distributed system, maybe you think that the network, the routers, hubs, switches, firewalls, and all the hardware things is not changed, but it changed. It changed all the time, and you can face with different situations where, for example, you design the system already deploy on production, it works, and sometimes you face the situation that something is not working, and you try to understand what is happening. Maybe some minor changes in infrastructure was made or upgrading the network, and it can influence your architecture. And then, for example, your timeouts will not correspond to this environment. So keep in mind this one. Another one wrong assumption or statement is that there is only one administrator. So it's wrong assumption. There are a lot of administrators and who will manage, who can manage your system. And when you choose the distributed approach, also keep in mind this, and to whom you have to communicate about the latency of the net of services and so on. If you will communicate with only one single person, but there will be a lot of administrators of this system later on, so they can also will influence and have some impact to your system, and it will be quite hard to coordinate this environment. Specifically, if you have distributed, so if you will compare with a monolithic application, it will not require quite big level of communication and collaboration. But if you will have distributed system and different administrators will manage different parts of the system, so you have to communicate with all of them to keep your system in consistent way. Another one is that assumption that is actually wrong is that transport cost is zero. It's not. When you choose the distributed architecture, then it means you rely on the network. Then it means that the communication will with the services will be rely on the REST. And maybe you can think that the communication between the REST is free. It will not cost you nothing. It's wrong assumption. It will. So why it what we're talking about actually, what it means, why it's not free. So maybe you have assumed that necessary infrastructure is in place, and it will not require additional hardware, additional servers, additional gateways, firewalls, subnets, proxies, and so on and so on. But it can be, and when you choose instead of monolithic the distributed system, you have to keep in mind that the customer, they have to buy all of this infrastructure as it can also require, for example, if you will choose a distributed one, the gateways, it will require firewalls, it will require additional hardware that is maybe it is not expected from their side. So also keep in mind this. Next assumption is that the network is homogeneous. So it's also a wrong statement that you can face with in future. For example, if you will build your system around one stack of technologies and let's say you will choose the Cisco hardware, then will it works with the different vendors or not? Some of them can be replaced by another one, but in some situation it's hard to do. So and hardware vendors in infrastructure in some cases is as I already told you, it will be hard to replace by other one. So also keep in mind this. This is a key point that is highlighted, and just pay attention for this one. But additionally, there are another concerns that you have to keep in mind is, for example, distributed logging. When you have distributed system, and for example, you will choose, let's say, microservice, so each service will have separate logs, and for the debugging purpose or to troubleshooting what it was happening on your particular situation, it will be quite complex to switch between all your logs and go through all of them to see the full picture how it is communicated. In monolithic approach, it is quite much more simpler because they are all in single place, so you can understand much more better. Yes, there is additional tools like Elasticsearch and Kibana that will try to collect all logs in single place, but nevertheless, still you will have to switch between filters in different services and use additional filters to find the place with the time, to understand what's happening. So in general, it can be a little bit harder. One of the key significant disadvantages when you choose the distributed system, and you have to keep in mind, and I faced with this in quite a lot of situations, is that distributed transactions. When you are working with a monolith, container provides you ACID operation, so all operations that you are working with database cover, they are atomic, and you are not worried about different cases that can happen. But when you start distribute the system, this issue can arise, and it's quite significant problem. Yes, there are some approaches that can help to resolve it, but anyway, so what it can resolve it, it means about, I'm talking about base, it's basic availability, soft state, and so base transactions that can be applied for distributed system. But still you have to manage it to make the system consistent. And if you want if the high priority is to make the data consistent, is higher than quick delivery, quick stability, easy to change, then maybe monolithic is better choice. If another one thinks is more preferable as simple to modify some of the service, and yes, distributed will works better, but you will lose in these things. What I'm talking about, for example, this general case if one service request save something into the database and then request to another one service, and that service fails, what you have to do with information that already saved into your database. It is already committed. So have you to roll back this information, or have you keep and propose to this request to proceed one more time, or have you keep it this information, but it will influence another order for other user, and so on and so on. So quite a lot of issues can be happened in this case. Another one is we have to also to mention, it's not like a big issue, but it is to keep contract of maintenance and versioning between all services in this also in consistent way, which means if you have distributed system with different services and maybe different teams are working on this, you have to propose one single approach to how you will manage versions, how you will, what is the contract of maintenance of all of the services. And in distributed teams, it will also a little bit harder. So this is one of the this is different concern that can be faced when you start working with distributed approaches. Now we will make now we will switch to the first architecture style, which is called layers. So we will stop here and continue with layers.